They are not property. Those 4 words nearly cost Wade Mercer his life that night. Standing on his porch facing armed men, a corrupt judge, and forged papers demanding 2 orphaned girls he'd sworn to protect, Wade knew this was the line he wouldn't cross. Behind him, 12-year-old Lena held her silent sister tight, waiting to see if another adult would betray them. Out in the darkness, hired guns waited for the order to fire. This is the story of how 4 broken people found each other in the most unforgiving place in Texas and fought like hell to stay together. If you're watching from somewhere in this world, drop your city in the comments below. I want to see how far this story travels. Now settle in, hit that like button, and let me tell you about the summer everything changed in Red Hollow. The heat in Red Hollow didn't just sit on your skin, it crawled inside and made a home there. By July of 1878, the town had stopped pretending it had a future. The railroad had chosen a route 40 miles north. The silver mine everyone bet on turned out to be mostly dirt and hope. What was left was a collection of sun-bleached buildings, desperate people, and the kind of dust that got into everything: your boots, your coffee, the spaces between your teeth. Wade Mercer guided his wagon down Main Street, or what passed for it. His son Noah sat beside him, 10 years old and talking non-stop about a bird's nest he'd found in the barn. Wade made the appropriate sounds, is that right? No kidding, while his mind stayed elsewhere. The supply run to Red Hollow was necessary but never pleasant. The town felt like it was dying in slow motion, and being there made you feel like you were dying with it. "Pa, you listening?" "I am." "What'd I just say?" Wade glanced at his son. Noah had his mother's eyes, dark and sharp, missing nothing. Sarah had been gone 3 years now. Fever took her quick, and sometimes Wade still turned to tell her something before remembering the house was quieter than it used to be. "Something about eggs," Wade tried. "I said the eggs are probably going to hatch soon, and can I keep one of the birds if I build it a proper cage?" "We'll see." "That means no." "It means we'll see." Noah made a face but didn't push it. The kid was learning when to let things drop, which was either wisdom or sadness, depending on how you looked at it. 10 years old was too young for that kind of calculation. The marketplace was chaos, not the good kind, the festival kind, but the desperate kind. Vendors shouting over each other, selling whatever they could scrounge. Half the stalls looked ready to pack up and leave town entirely. Wade pulled the wagon to a stop near the general store. "Stay close," he told Noah. "I always do." "I mean it." Wade climbed down, already feeling the weight of eyes on him. Strangers weren't common anymore, but he wasn't exactly welcome either. 3 years ago, he'd been a deputy here, worked under Sheriff Hastings before the man drank himself to death. Wade left the badge behind when Sarah got sick, chose the ranch and his son over a town that was already circling the drain. Some people respected that choice. Others called it abandonment. He was halfway to the store when he heard the commotion. It started as a shout, angry, male. Then came the sound every parent recognizes, a child's cry, sharp with fear. Wade turned. Near the water vendor's stall, a crowd had formed, not helping, just watching. The way people do when they know something's wrong but haven't decided if it's their problem yet. Wade pushed through. In the center of the circle, a man had his boot raised. Below him, a girl, maybe 12, was sprawled in the dust, one arm thrown across a smaller child. The little one couldn't have been older than 6. Both were filthy, dressed in clothes that had seen better months, if not better years. "I said move," the man barked. His face was red, sweat-soaked. The water vendor, McKittrick. Wade knew him slightly. Mean when sober, meaner when not. The older girl didn't move. "She can't walk fast. She's tired." "Not my problem. You're blocking my stall." We were just..." McKittrick's boot came down. Not hard enough to break bones, but hard enough. The girl flinched, curling tighter around the smaller child. The little one didn't make a sound, just stared ahead with eyes that looked somewhere past McKittrick, past the crowd, past everything. Wade didn't plan to step forward, didn't plan to say anything. He had Noah to think about, supplies to buy, a ranch that wouldn't run itself. Red Hollow's problems weren't his problems anymore, but his feet moved anyway. "That's enough." McKittrick looked up, annoyed. "This ain't your concern, Mercer." "I'm making it my concern. These girls are beggars. Been hanging around all morning, scaring off customers. They're children. They're trash." McKittrick spat in the dust near the older girl's hand. Their kind bring disease, bring trouble. Wade looked at the girls properly now. The older one met his gaze straight on. No pleading, no tears. Just exhaustion so deep it had worn grooves into her young face. The little one still hadn't moved, hadn't blinked. "How much for water?" Wade asked. McKittrick's eyes narrowed. "You buying for them?" "How much?" "2 bits a cup. That's 3 times the going rate." "Supply and demand, Mercer. You want it or not?" Wade pulled coins from his pocket, not bothering to count them carefully. He dropped them into McKittrick's outstretched palm. 2 cups. And some bread if you've got it. McKittrick counted the money slowly, making sure everyone saw. Then he filled 2 tin cups from his barrel, splashing half the contents on the ground in the process. Handed them over with a smile that showed too many missing teeth. Wade knelt down, offering the cups to the girls. The older one stared at them like they might vanish if she blinked. "It's all right," Wade said quietly. She didn't take them. "What do you want?" "Nothing." "People always want something." "Fair point." Wade set the cups down between them. "Then consider it a gift." The little girl's hand shot out, grabbing 1 cup so fast water sloshed over the rim. She drank in huge, desperate gulps. The older one watched her sister drink first, then took the second cup more carefully. Wade stood ready to leave. He'd done his good deed. That should have been enough. "Mister?" He turned back. The older girl was on her feet now, holding the smaller child's hand. Up close, Wade could see the layers of grime, the healing scrapes on her arms, the way she held herself like someone expecting the next blow. "You got food?" Wade hesitated. Behind him, he could feel Noah watching from the wagon. The boy had climbed down, standing at the edge of the crowd. "I might." "We ain't eaten in 2 days. We can work. Both of us. We're strong." She wasn't strong. Neither of them were. They looked like a strong wind would carry them off. "Where's your family?" Wade asked. Something flickered across the girl's face. "Dead." "All of them?" "All that matter." The little one tugged on her sister's dress, whispered something Wade couldn't hear. The older girl shook her head once, sharp. "We don't need charity," she said, louder now. "We can work. I can clean, cook, mend. She's little, but she's good with animals. We won't steal nothing. We won't cause trouble." Wade looked at them both. Really looked. These weren't just poor kids. They were running from something. "What's your name?" "Lena." She pointed at her sister. "This is Mira." "I'm Wade. That's my son, Noah." Noah gave a small wave. Lena didn't wave back. "Listen," Wade said slowly. "I've got a ranch about 10 miles west of here. I can give you a meal and a place to rest up. After that, we can figure out what comes next." Lena's expression didn't change. "You got a wife?" "No." "Other people living there?" "Just me and Noah." "Why would you help us?" Wade didn't have a good answer to that. Because it was the right thing to do? Because they reminded him of something he couldn't quite name? Because watching them starve in the street wasn't something he could walk away from? "Because I can," he said finally. Lena stared at him for a long moment. Then she bent down, whispered something to Mira. The little girl looked up at Wade with those hollow eyes and gave the smallest nod. "We'll come," Lena said, "but if you try anything—" "I won't. I got a knife, and I know how to use it." "Noted." Wade led them back to the wagon, aware of the stairs following them. Noah had already climbed into the back, making space among the supply crates. He held out a hand to help Mira up. She looked at it like she'd never seen a hand before. "It's okay," Noah said. "I don't bite." Still, Mira hesitated. Finally, Lena lifted her sister into the wagon bed and climbed in after. They sat as far from Noah as the space allowed, Lena's arm locked around Mira's shoulders. Wade finished loading the supplies he'd come for, trying to ignore the whispers around him, taking in strays. Fool's errand. Those girls are trouble, mark my words. He'd heard it all before, about other things. People in Red Hollow had opinions about everything and solutions for nothing. The ride back to the ranch was quiet. Noah tried making conversation a few times, but Lena shut him down with one-word answers. Mira didn't speak at all, just watched the landscape roll by like she was memorizing an escape route. Wade's ranch wasn't much: a main house, a barn, some outbuildings that needed repair, and land that stretched farther than it was worth. He'd bought it with Sarah, back when they thought they'd fill it with kids and horses and a life that made sense. Now it was just him and Noah rattling around in too much space. He pulled the wagon up to the house. "Come on inside. I'll get something cooking." Lena didn't move. "We can eat in the barn." "You'll eat in the house. We've slept in worse than barns." "I'm sure you have, but you're eating in the house." They had a staring contest that lasted 10 seconds before Lena gave in. She helped Mira down from the wagon, and they followed Wade inside with the caution of animals entering a trap. The house was lived in but clean. Sarah had insisted on that, and Wade kept up the habit even after she was gone. Dishes washed, floors swept, curtains that still smelled like the lavender sachets she used to make. "Sit," Wade said, gesturing at the table. Lena sat. Mira climbed into her sister's lap instead of taking her own chair. Wade got to work. Beans, salt pork, cornbread from yesterday that was still good enough. Nothing fancy, but it was hot and there was plenty of it. Noah helped without being asked, setting out plates and cups like his mother taught him. When Wade set the food down, Lena didn't move, just stared at it. "It's not poisoned," Wade said. "Didn't say it was." "Then eat." She picked up a fork like she was testing its weight, took a small bite of beans, chewed slowly. Only after she swallowed did she let Mira eat. They cleaned their plates in minutes. Wade served seconds without comment. This time they ate slower, like they were starting to believe the food wouldn't disappear. "When's the last time you had a real meal?" Wade asked. Lena didn't look up. "Don't remember." "Where'd you come from?" "East." "How far east?" "Far enough." Wade tried a different angle. "How long you been on the road?" "Couple months." "Walking?" "Mostly." Noah was watching Mira with open curiosity. "How old are you?" The little girl didn't answer, didn't even look at him. "She's 6, Lena said. "She don't talk much." "Why not?" "She just don't." "Can she talk at all?" Lena's expression went hard. "She ain't simple, if that's what you're asking." I didn't mean." "She talks when she wants to. Leave her be." Wade put a hand on Noah's shoulder. "Finish your food." They ate in uncomfortable silence. When the plates were empty, Wade cleared the table while Lena watched his every move. The girl was coiled tight as a spring, ready to bolt at the first wrong word. "There's a room upstairs," Wade said. "Used to be storage, but it's got a bed. You two can sleep there tonight." "We can't pay you." "I'm not asking you to." "People always ask eventually." Wade turned to face her. "Look, I don't know what you've been through, and you don't have to tell me. But while you're under my roof, you're safe. That's the deal. You want to leave tomorrow, fine. But tonight, you sleep in a real bed." Lena studied him with those old eyes. "What if we steal from you?" "Then I'll know I was wrong about you." "What if we run off in the middle of the night?" "Then I'll hope you find somewhere better to go." She didn't have a response to that. Wade led them upstairs to the small room at the end of the hall. It wasn't much: a bed, a washstand, a window that looked out over the fields. But it was clean and dry and private. "Towels are in the chest," Wade said. "There's a pump out back if you want to wash up. No locks on the doors, but nobody's going to bother you." Lena stood in the doorway, not quite entering. "Why are you doing this?" Wade thought about that. About Sarah, who used to bring food to families who had less. About the people who helped him when Noah was born early and sick, and they didn't think he'd make it. About the 100 small kindnesses that keep the world from being completely terrible. "Because somebody should," he said. He left them there and went back downstairs. Noah was washing dishes, which meant he was worried about something. "They're not going to stay," Noah said without looking up. "Probably not." "The little one's scared of everything. Can you blame her?" Noah scrubbed at a plate that was already clean. "What happened to them?" "I don't know." "Are we going to help them?" Wade dried his hands on a towel. "We already did. I mean, really help them, long term." "That's not up to us." "Why not?" "Because we're barely holding on ourselves," Wade thought. "Because I don't know the first thing about raising girls. Because taking in strays is how you end up with more problems than you started with." "Because it's complicated," Wade said. Noah gave him a look that was pure Sarah, disappointment wrapped in understanding. When did you start being scared of complicated? Before Wade could answer, there was a sound from upstairs. Water running, footsteps. Then nothing. Wade climbed the stairs quietly, not sneaking but not announcing himself either. The door to the girls' room was cracked open. Through the gap, he could see Lena helping Mira wash her face with water from the basin. The little girl's hair was matted, tangled beyond any easy fixing. Lena worked at it with her fingers, gentle but efficient. "It's okay," Lena whispered. "We're okay." Mira made a sound. Not quite words, but something close. "I know you're tired. Just a little more, then we'll sleep." Wade backed away before they noticed him. Downstairs, he found Noah already stretched out on the couch with a book he wasn't reading. "I'm going to check the barn," Wade said. "You stay inside." "I always stay inside." Wade stepped out into the cooling evening. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and red that would have been pretty if they didn't remind him of fire. He walked the perimeter of the property, checking fences more out of habit than necessity. He was halfway to the barn when he heard it, the sound of a horse approaching fast. Wade's hand went to his hip, but he'd left his gun in the house. Stupid. He'd gotten soft living out here with just Noah, forgotten that trouble doesn't always announce itself politely. The rider appeared over the rise, a single man on a dark horse pushing hard. Wade recognized him as he got closer. Cal Reed, one of the few deputies left in Red Hollow who wasn't on somebody's payroll. Cal pulled up short, his horse breathing hard. "Mercer." "Reed, what brings you out here?" "Looking for 2 girls." Cal dismounted, walking his horse cool. "Orphans. One about 12, one smaller. You seen them?" Wade kept his expression neutral. "Might have." "Why?" "Judge Boone wants them back." "Back from where?" "They ran off from a placement, family up near Cisco. Judge arranged it all legal, but the girls took off 3 days ago. He's got papers saying they belong with that family until they're of age." "Belong," Wade repeated. His words, not mine. Cal looked uncomfortable. "Look, I don't like it either, but I got a job to do. You seen them or not?" Wade thought fast. He could lie. Send Cal riding off in the wrong direction, but that would only buy time, and time wasn't the real problem here. "They're inside," Wade said, "having supper." Cal's shoulders dropped. "Damn, I was hoping you'd say no. They're half-starved, Reed, covered in bruises. Whatever that family in Cisco was doing, it wasn't taking care of them." "I believe you, but the judge has legal custody papers. I have to bring them back." "Like hell you do." "Wade, those girls walked 200 miles to get away from wherever they were. You think they did that because they were being treated right?" Cal rubbed his face. "What I think doesn't matter. The law's the law." "Boone's law." "It's the only law we've got." Wade stepped closer, lowering his voice. "How much is he paying that family?" "What?" "The placement. How much is Boone getting paid to supply them with workers?" Cal's silence was answer enough. "That's what I thought," Wade said. "So let me ask you something, Reed. Are you going to be the one who drags 2 little girls back into that? Because I sure as hell won't." They stood there in the fading light, 2 men who used to work the same job, now on opposite sides of something neither of them wanted. Finally, Cal spoke. "I didn't see them." Wade blinked. "What?" "I rode out here. Asked you if you'd seen 2 orphan girls. You said no. I searched the property, barn, house, everywhere. Came up empty." Cal mounted his horse. "I'll report back to the judge tomorrow. Tell him they must have headed north." "Reed, don't make me regret this, Wade. If those girls do anything, steal, cause trouble, it's on both of us." "They won't." "You don't know that." "I'm making it my business to know it." Cal gathered his reins. "Judge Boone doesn't forget, and he doesn't forgive." "I'll worry about Boone when I have to." "You're going to have to sooner than you think." Cal kicked his horse into motion. "Watch yourself, Mercer." Wade watched him ride away until he was just a dark shape against the darker horizon. Then he went back inside. Noah was at the window. "Who was that?" "Deputy Reed." "What do you want?" "Doesn't matter. He's gone." Upstairs there was no sound. Wade climbed the steps slowly, stopping outside the girls' room. The door was still cracked. Inside, Lena sat on the bed with her back against the wall, Mira curled against her side. Both were asleep, but Lena's hand rested on something under the blanket. The knife she'd mentioned. Even unconscious, she was ready to fight. Wade pulled the door shut quietly and went to his own room. Through the window, he could see the moon rising over the eastern hills. Somewhere out there, Judge Boone was probably already planning his next move. Cal would buy them a day, maybe two. After that, things would get complicated. But for tonight, 2 starving girls were sleeping in real beds with full stomachs. That would have to be enough. Wade woke to silence, which was wrong. The ranch always had sound, birds, wind, the creak of old wood settling. But this morning felt held, like the world was waiting for something to break. He dressed quickly and went downstairs. Noah was already at the table, pushing eggs around his plate. The boy looked up when Wade entered. "They're still here," Noah said. "You checked?" "I heard them moving around upstairs. The older one, Lena, she was at the window for a while, just standing there." Wade poured coffee. Yesterday's ground stretched one day too far. "What time?" "Before dawn. I think she was watching the road." Smart girl. Wade had spent half the night doing the same thing, waiting for riders that didn't come. Cal's lie would hold for now, but Boone wasn't the type to accept defeat easily. Men like him never were. Footsteps on the stairs. Wade turned to find Lena standing in the doorway, Mira's hand gripped tight in hers. Both girls looked exhausted despite a full night's sleep, the kind of tired that came from inside, that no amount of rest could touch. "Morning," Wade said. Lena nodded once. Her eyes swept the room, doors, windows, exits, always calculating. "There's breakfast if you want it." "We should go." Noah's fork stopped halfway to his mouth. Wade set down his coffee cup carefully. "Go where?" he asked. "Away from here. We've stayed too long already." "You've stayed one night." "That's how it starts." Lena's voice was flat, rehearsed. "People seem nice at first, then they want things. Or someone comes looking and you bring trouble to folks who don't deserve it. Better we leave now." Mira tugged on her sister's dress, whispered something. Lena shook her head. "I don't care if you're hungry. We can find food on the road." "Like you did before?" Wade asked. Lena's jaw tightened. "We managed. You were half dead in the dirt when I found you. We were handling it." "That what you call handling it? Letting some drunk bastard kick you around a marketplace?" Color rose in Lena's cheeks. "We're not your problem." "Didn't say you were." "Then why do you care if we go?" Wade looked at her, this 12-year-old girl with 40-year-old eyes, and tried to find words that wouldn't sound like pity, because pity was the last thing she'd accept. "Deputy came by last night," he said finally. Lena went very still. And I told him I hadn't seen you. He rode off north. He'll be back. Probably. Then we need to go before he does. Or, Wade said slowly, you could stay. Let me figure this out. Figure what out? You don't even know us. I know enough. Lena laughed, sharp and bitter. You don't know nothing. You don't know where we've been or what we've seen. You don't know why we're running or who's chasing us. You're just some rancher who felt sorry for a couple of strays. You're right, Wade said. I don't know those things, but I know what it looks like when someone's being hunted. And I know that whatever you're running from, it's bad enough that you'd rather starve than go back to it. Silence stretched between them. Mira had pressed herself against Lena's leg, small and silent as a shadow. The judge who wants you back, Wade continued, Silas Boone. You know him? Lena's expression answered before her words did. We know him. What's he to you? He's the one who placed us with the family in Cisco, said it was legal, said we'd be taken care of. She spat the last words like poison. Took us 3 weeks to figure out he'd sold us. That family paid him for workers. We weren't children to them. We were property. Noah had gone pale. Wade felt something cold settle in his chest. How many others? He asked. What? How many other children has Boone placed? I don't know. Dozens, maybe? There were others at the ranch in Cisco. Kids who'd been there longer. They stopped fighting it, stopped talking, just worked until they couldn't work anymore. And if they ran... Lena's hand moved to her side, touching something Wade couldn't see. They got brought back. The ones who made it out once told stories. Said Boone has people everywhere. Lawmen, ranchers, judges. Said running was useless because he owns the whole territory. He doesn't own me. Not yet. But he will. Men like Boone always win. Wade wanted to argue, but she wasn't wrong. Boone had money, connections, the weight of the law behind him. What did Wade have? A struggling ranch and a son to protect. But he also had something Boone didn't. He'd seen Lena throw herself over her sister in the dirt, taking a boot that was meant for both of them. He'd watched her check every exit in his house while pretending not to. He'd heard her whisper comfort to Mira in the dark, promising safety she couldn't guarantee. That kind of love was worth fighting for. "Sit down," Wade said. "Eat breakfast. Then we'll talk." "There's nothing to talk about." "Sit down."
Lena stared at him. Wade stared back. Finally, with the slow wariness of someone approaching a trap, she led Mira to the table and sat. Noah pushed the plate of eggs toward them. "They're still warm." Lena didn't move. Mira's eyes were locked on the food, but she didn't reach for it. "It's not a trick," Noah said. "We just eat breakfast here, every morning. It's boring and normal and nobody wants anything." Something in his voice, honest and young and unburdened by the weight Lena carried, made her shoulders drop slightly. She picked up a fork, took a bite, then nodded at Mira. The little girl ate like yesterday, fast and desperate, like the food might fight back. They finished quickly. Wade refilled their plates without asking. This time they ate slower. "Tell me about Boone's operation," Wade said. Lena glanced up. "Why?" "Because if I'm going to help you, I need to know what we're up against." "You can't help us. Nobody can." "Try me." Lena set down her fork. "Boone's been doing this for years. He works with the Territorial Orphan Placement Office. Gets first pick of kids nobody wants. Says he's finding them homes, but really, he's selling them to ranchers who don't want to pay real wages. The county pays him for processing the placements. The families pay him for delivering workers. He makes money twice. And if the children complain, who would they complain to? Boone controls the courts. The sheriff in Red Hollow is on his payroll, most of the deputies too. Anyone who causes trouble gets labeled as difficult or ungrateful, gets sent somewhere worse. How'd you and Mira end up in his system?" Lena's hands curled into fists on the table. "Our parents died. Fever, same as a lot of folks that winter. We had an aunt, but she couldn't take us. Said she had too many mouths to feed already. So we went into county care. Boone showed up a week later with papers and promises. Said he'd found us a good family, Christian people who wanted to help." Wade noticed Noah flinch at the word, but didn't comment. "The family in Cisco?" Wade asked. "The Harpers, Malcolm and Ruth. They seemed nice at first. Ruth even hugged us when we arrived. But that first night, Malcolm laid out the rules. We'd work dawn to dusk. No school, no days off. We'd eat what was left after the family ate. We'd sleep in the barn. And if we tried to run, he'd notify Judge Boone, who'd make sure we ended up somewhere that made the Harpers' place look like paradise." "How long were you there?" 4 months. 4 months of working fields until our hands bled. Of Ruth pretending to care when Malcolm was around, then ignoring us completely when he wasn't. Of watching other children break under the weight of it. "So you ran." "We waited, watched, learned their patterns. Then one night when Malcolm was drunk and Ruth was visiting her sister, we took what we could carry and left. That was 8 weeks ago." Wade tried to imagine it. 2 girls, one barely 12 and the other 6, walking 200 miles through hostile territory with no money and no help. "How'd you survive?" "We stayed off main roads, slept in abandoned buildings. Mira's small enough to fit through windows people don't lock. I'm good at being quiet. We took what we needed and kept moving." "You stole." "We survived." Lena's voice was hard. "Don't pretend you wouldn't have done the same." She was right. Wade would have done worse. "Why Red Hollow?" he asked. "We didn't plan on Red Hollow. We were heading west, trying to get far enough that Boone couldn't reach. But we ran out of food 2 days out. Figured we could sneak into town, take what we needed, then disappear. Except Mira got dizzy from the heat. I had to stop. And then that bastard with the water started yelling, and..." She trailed off. "You know the rest." Noah had been listening with his mouth half open. "That's the bravest thing I ever heard." Lena looked at him like he was speaking another language. "It's not brave, it's desperate." "What's the difference?" "Brave people have choices. We didn't." Wade stood, collecting plates. "You have choices now." "Such as?" "You can keep running.
I'll give you supplies, point you towards settlements Boone doesn't control. Or you can stay here while I figure out how to keep you safe.
There is no way to keep us safe. Not from him. Then let me try anyway. Lena studied him with those exhausted eyes. Why would you risk that? You don't owe us nothing. Wade thought about Sarah, who used to say that the world stayed decent only because enough people decided to be decent in it. He thought about Noah, who needed to see that sometimes standing up for something mattered more than playing it safe.
Maybe I'm just stupid, Wade said. Or maybe I'm tired of watching bad men win because good people stay quiet. Before Lena could respond, Mira tugged on her sleeve, whispered something in a voice so quiet Wade couldn't make out the words. Lena's expression softened slightly. She says the food's good here, Lena translated. Says she likes the bed. Noah grinned. See? Mira gets it. Stay for the food at least. Lena looked at her sister, at Noah, at Wade. The calculation in her eyes was painful to watch. Trust warring with experience, hope fighting memory. One more day, she said finally. But if riders come, we're gone. I won't let you get hurt because of us. Deal. The rest of the morning passed in careful normalcy. Wade showed the girls around the ranch, explaining how things worked. Lena listened with the intensity of someone memorizing every detail. Mira stayed close but started looking around instead of just at the ground. Noah appointed himself tour guide, chattering about the chickens, the vegetable patch that was more weeds than vegetables, the old oak tree his mother used to read under. She'd sit right there, Noah said, pointing. Every Sunday afternoon, no matter what. Said even ranch work could wait for a good book. Lena touched the tree's bark carefully, like it might burn her. What happened to her? Fever, 3 years ago. I'm sorry. Noah shrugged, but his eyes had gone distant. Pa says she's still here sometimes, not like a ghost or anything, just in the things she cared about. The tree, the curtains in the house, the way we do Sunday breakfast. Mira whispered to Lena. She wants to know if you miss her, Lena said. Every day, Noah answered, but it's not the sad kind of missing anymore. More like remembering someone you're glad you knew. They stood there in the shade, 4 people bound by loss in different shapes. Wade cleared his throat. Noah, why don't you show Mira the new chicks in the barn? Lena and I need to talk. Noah led Mira away, keeping up his steady stream of chatter. The little girl's hand had crept into his without either of them seeming to notice. When they were gone, Wade turned to Lena. Tell me about the knife. Her hand went to her waistband. What about it? You sleep with it. Keep your hand on it even when you're unconscious. That's not normal caution. That's experience. Lena pulled the knife out slowly. It was small, the blade barely 4 inches, but well kept. The last place before the Harpers, she said quietly. The man who took us in. He seemed kind at first. Gave us our own room, fed us real meals. Then one night he locked the door from the outside. Said we belonged to him now. That he'd paid good money for workers and we'd earn it back. Wade's hands curled into fists. He made a mistake, though, Lena continued. Left his tools in our room. I waited until he unlocked the door to bring dinner. Then I put this through his hand. We ran while he was screaming. How old were you? 11? Mira was 5. Wade wanted to find that man and finish what Lena started, but that was useless anger, the kind that felt good but solved nothing. You did what you had to, he said. People keep telling me that. Doesn't make it easier to sleep. It shouldn't. The day violence gets easy is the day you lose yourself. Lena looked at him sharply. You sound like you know. I was a deputy for 5 years. Saw things. Did things. Some of them still wake me up at night. But you stopped. I chose to stop. That's different than having no choice at all. They stood in silence for a moment. Then Lena slipped the knife back into her waistband. If we stay, she said, I need you to understand something. I won't go quiet. If Boone's men come, I'll fight, and I won't let them take Mira. I'll kill them first or die trying. It won't come to that. You can't promise that. No, Wade admitted. I can't. But I can promise that if it does come to that, you won't fight alone. Lena studied him like she was trying to decide if he meant it. Finally, she nodded once. Not trust, but maybe the beginning of it. They found Noah and Mira in the barn. The little girl was sitting in the straw, a chick nestled carefully in her cupped palms. Noah was explaining something about eggs and hatching, using hand gestures that suggested the explanation was getting away from him. Mira looked up when they entered. Her mouth opened, closed, then opened again. "Soft," she whispered. The word hung in the air like something fragile. Noah froze. Lena went very still.
"Yeah," Noah said carefully. "They're real soft. You want to hold another one?" Mira nodded. Noah gently placed a second chick in her hands. The little girl's face did something Wade hadn't seen before. It almost smiled. Lena's eyes were bright with something that might have been tears. She turned away quickly, pretending to examine the barn wall. Wade left them there and headed back to the house. He had work to do, fences to check, accounts to balance, a ranch that wouldn't run itself. But first, he needed to make a decision about what came next. Cal's lie bought them time, but time wasn't a solution. Boone would send more men, better men. And when they came, what then? Wade could send the girls away. Point them toward Colorado or California, places Boone's reach didn't extend. But that felt like abandoning them to another kind of death, slow and hungry and alone. Or he could fight. Use what connections he had left, find evidence of Boone's trafficking operation, expose it. But that was dangerous, maybe suicidal. And it put Noah at risk. The smart play was obvious. The right play was harder to see. Wade was still weighing options when hoofbeats sounded in the distance. He grabbed his rifle from inside the door and stepped onto the porch. The rider was alone, coming slow. Not an attack then, but not friendly either. As the horse got closer, Wade recognized the man, Samuel Garrett, a rancher from 20 miles south. They'd done business before, traded stock, shared information about water rights and grazing land. Not friends exactly, but not enemies either. Garrett pulled up at the edge of the property. "Mercer." "Garrett, what brings you out here?" "Heard you picked up a couple of strays in Red Hollow." Wade's grip on the rifle tightened. News travels fast. "Always does, especially when Judge Boone's involved." "He send you?" "No." Garrett dismounted, moving slow and obvious. Not a threat. "But he's been asking around, sent word to every ranch within 50 miles. Says he's looking for 2 orphan girls, offering a reward for information." "How much?" $20. That was serious money. Enough to tempt people who had less than nothing. "And you rode all the way out here to tell me that?" Wade asked. Garrett pulled off his hat, wiped sweat from his forehead. "I rode out here to tell you to be careful. Boone's not just some judge playing at power. He's connected, owns half the law enforcement in the territory, and he doesn't forget slights." "I'll keep that in mind." "Will you?" Garrett's expression was serious. "Because taking in those girls, if that's what you did, that's more than a slight. That's direct interference with his business." "What business would that be?" "Don't play stupid, Wade. Everyone knows Boone sells orphans to families looking for cheap labor. Hell, I bought 2 boys from him 4 years ago." Wade's stomach turned. "You what?" "I needed help on the ranch. Couldn't afford to hire grown men. Boone offered a solution. It's legal or legal enough. The boys get shelter and food. I get workers. Everyone benefits." "Everyone except the children," Garrett shrugged. "They were heading for worse situations. At least with me, they're fed and not beaten." "That's your standard? Not beaten?" "It's the world we live in, Mercer. I didn't make it this way." "But you profit from it." "So do you, if you're smart. Boone's offering $20 for information. That could buy a lot of feed for your stock. Could fix that fence line I noticed coming in. All you have to do is tell him where the girls are." Wade raised his rifle slightly. Not aiming, just adjusting. "Get off my property." Garrett held up his hands. "I'm trying to help you here." "No, you're trying to justify yourself. Now leave." "Fine, but don't say I didn't warn you. Boone's got long arms and a longer memory. Those girls aren't worth dying for." Garrett mounted his horse and rode off without looking back. Wade watched until he disappeared over the rise, then lowered the rifle. His hands were shaking. Behind him, the door creaked open. Lena stood there, Noah and Mira just visible behind her. "We heard," Lena said. Wade turned. "How much?" "Enough. The part about the reward. The part about Boone owning everyone." She took a breath. "We're leaving, tonight, before this gets worse." "No." "You don't get a say in this." "The hell I don't.
This is my property, my decision. Lena's voice rose. And we're not your responsibility. You've done enough. You gave us food and shelter and time to rest. But we won't stay and watch you lose everything because of us. What if I'm not doing this for you? That stopped her. What? What if I'm doing this because I'm tired of men like Boone running things? Because I'm tired of watching good people look the other way while children get sold like cattle? What if this isn't about saving you? It's about deciding what kind of man I want to be. Lena stared at him. That's the stupidest thing I ever heard. Probably, but it's true. They faced each other in the doorway, both stubborn, both scared, both pretending not to be. Finally, Noah spoke up. Can I say something? No, Wade and Lena said together. I'm saying it anyway. Mira talked today. First time since you got here. Maybe first time in a long time. Based on how surprised Lena looked. You really want to take her back out on the road right when she's starting to feel safe? Lena's jaw worked. She looked down at Mira, who was watching the conversation with those hollow eyes. It's not about what I want, Lena said quietly. It's about keeping her alive. She's not alive if she's too scared to talk, Noah countered. She's just breathing. Wade put a hand on his son's shoulder. That's enough. But the words hung there, undeniable. Lena closed her eyes. When she opened them again, they were wet. I can't watch her get hurt again. I can't. You won't have to, Wade said. I'll figure this out. How? I don't know yet, but I will. It was a promise he had no business making, but sometimes promises were the only thing holding back the dark. That night, Wade sat at his kitchen table long after everyone else had gone to bed. The house creaked and settled around him. Upstairs, he could hear the faint sound of Lena's voice, low and steady, telling Mira something he couldn't make out. He'd made his choice. Now he had to live with it. The question was how to keep two orphan girls safe from a corrupt judge who controlled the law, the courts, and most of the people with power to stop him. Wade pulled out paper and pencil, started making a list of names. People who owed him favors. People who hated Boone. People who might listen if he asked. The list was shorter than he'd hoped, but it was a start. Outside, the moon rose over empty fields. Somewhere in the darkness, men were making plans. But so was Wade Mercer, and he'd be damned if he let them win without a fight. The list of names stayed short no matter how long Wade stared at it. By the time the first light crept through the kitchen window, he'd crossed out more people than he'd added. Sarah used to say he was stubborn, but she'd meant it as a compliment. Right now, it just felt like stupidity with better posture. He was burning the list in the stove when footsteps sounded on the stairs. Lena appeared, already dressed, her hair pulled back tight. She'd probably been awake for hours. You didn't sleep, she said. Not a question. Neither did you. She moved to the window, checking the road like she'd done every morning since arriving. I've been thinking about what you said about fighting Boone. And? And it's still stupid, but if you're set on doing it anyway, you're going to need help. Wade poured coffee into 2 cups, handed her one. She took it but didn't drink. I don't have much help to call on, Wade admitted. What about the deputy? Reed, he lied for us once. Cal's a good man, but he's got a family to feed. Can't ask him to throw away his job. Who else knows about Boone's operation? Everyone knows. That's the problem. They either profit from it or they're too scared to do anything. Lena finally sipped the coffee, made a face. This is terrible. I know. Why do you drink it? Habit. Sarah made it the same way. Kept doing it after she passed because changing it felt like forgetting her. Lena set down the cup. That's sad. Yeah. They stood in silence for a moment. Outside, the sun was properly up now, painting the dusty yard in shades of gold that made everything look better than it was. The ledgers, Lena said suddenly. Wade looked at her. What? Boone keeps records. Has to, for the county payments. If we could get our hands on them, prove he's selling children for profit, the courts won't care. Boone controls them. But what about Austin, the territorial marshal? He's not under Boone's thumb, is he? Wade turned that over in his mind. Marshal Jonah Calhoun ran law enforcement for the whole territory, answered directly to the governor. If anyone had the authority to investigate Boone, it was him. But Austin was 200 miles away, and getting evidence there would mean leaving the ranch unprotected. It's worth considering, Wade said carefully, which means you're going to do it. I didn't say that.
You didn't have to. You've got that look Noah gets when he's about to do something you told him not to. Before Wade could respond, Noah himself appeared in the doorway, Mira trailing behind him. The little girl was wearing one of Noah's old shirts, drowning in fabric. She'd started following him around like a shadow, speaking more each day. Yesterday she'd said 7 whole words. Noah was keeping count. "Morning," Noah said, then stopped. "What's wrong?" "Nothing's wrong," Wade said. "You're both standing there looking serious. That's always something." Lena crossed her arms. "Your father's planning to rob Judge Boone." "I'm not robbing him. I'm retrieving evidence." "By breaking into his office in the middle of the night?" "I haven't decided on the middle of the night part yet." Noah's eyes went wide. "You're serious?" "Thinking about it." "That's insane. Boone's office is right next to the sheriff's station. You'd never make it out. Which is why I'm still thinking." Mira tugged on Lena's sleeve, whispered something. Lena translated without taking her eyes off Wade. "She says it's too dangerous, says you'll get caught." "Tell her I appreciate the concern." "I'm not telling her that." "I agree with her." Wade rubbed his face, feeling every hour of lost sleep. "Look, I don't have a better plan. If we can prove Boone's trafficking children, we can bring him down legal. No violence, no one gets hurt. We just need evidence. Evidence that's locked in his office," Lena said. "Guarded. In the middle of town." "You have a better idea." She didn't. None of them did. They stood there in Wade's kitchen, 4 people trying to solve a problem that felt bigger than all of them combined. Finally, Noah spoke up. "What if you had help?" "No," Wade said immediately. "Just hear me out. No, you're staying here where it's safe. I wasn't volunteering me. I meant Deputy Reed. If he's already lying for us, maybe he'd be willing to do more." Wade considered that. Cal had taken a risk sending him off the trail, but breaking into a judge's office was another level entirely. It was the kind of thing that ended careers or lives, depending on how it went. "I'll think about it," Wade said. "That's not a no," Noah pointed out. "It's not a yes either." They ate breakfast in tense silence, everyone lost in their own thoughts. Afterward, Wade sent the kids outside with chores while he saddled his horse. Lena intercepted him at the barn. "Where are you going?" "To talk to Cal." "I'm coming with you." "No, you're not." "Those are my records too, my name in those ledgers. I have a right to be there." "You have a right to stay safe. That's what I'm trying to give you." Lena stepped closer, her voice dropping. "I've spent the last 4 months running and hiding and letting other people make decisions about my life. I'm done with that. If you're going to do this, I'm helping. It's too dangerous. Everything's dangerous. At least this way I'm doing something instead of just waiting for the next bad thing to happen." Wade looked at her, 12 years old and harder than most men he knew. She'd earned the right to her anger, her fear, her need to fight back. But that didn't mean he had to let her walk into danger. "Stay with Noah and Mira," he said firmly. "Keep watch. If riders come, you take my son and you run. Don't wait for me. Don't try to fight. Just go. Wade, that's how you help. By keeping them safe while I'm gone." Lena's jaw worked like she wanted to argue more, but something in Wade's expression stopped her. She nodded once, sharp and angry. "Fine. But if you get yourself killed, I'm never forgiving you." "Fair enough." Wade rode out before she could change her mind or he could change his. The road to Red Hollow was empty, which was either a good sign or a very bad one. He kept his rifle across his saddle and his eyes on the horizon. He found Cal at the edge of town, supervising some dispute between 2 farmers over water rights. The deputy looked tired, like he'd aged 5 years in the past week. "Mercer," Cal said when Wade approached. "Didn't expect to see you here." "Need to talk. Private." Cal excused himself from the farmers and walked with Wade to the shade behind the general store. Nobody around, just dust and heat and the distant sound of someone hammering metal. "I'm guessing this is about the girls," Cal said. "It is, but not the way you think." Wade laid out his plan, or the skeleton of it anyway. Get into Boone's office, find the ledgers, get them to Austin. Cal listened without interrupting, his expression getting darker with every word. When Wade finished, Cal was quiet for a long moment. "That's the dumbest thing I've heard all year," he said finally. "And I once watched a man try to break a horse by wrestling it. I know it's risky." "Risky?" "Wade, it's suicide. Boone's office is locked tighter than a bank. Even if you got in, he keeps his important papers in a safe.
You know how to crack a safe? No. Neither do I, so unless you've suddenly learned safe cracking, this whole plan falls apart before it starts. Wade hadn't thought about a safe. Of course there'd be a safe. He felt stupid for not considering it. There has to be a way, he said. There isn't, not without getting caught. Cal pulled off his hat, ran a hand through his hair. Look, I want to help those girls same as you, but this isn't the way. Then what is? I don't know. But breaking into a judge's office in the middle of a town where half the law is bought and paid for? That's not courage, Wade. That's just dying with extra steps. Wade leaned against the building, feeling the rough wood through his shirt. Cal was right. The plan was full of holes, but doing nothing felt worse than dying. What if you helped? Wade asked. How? You're a deputy. You have access to the courthouse. Maybe you could… No. Cal's voice was hard. I've got a wife and 2 kids at home. I lied for you once because it was the right thing and nobody got hurt. But what you're asking now, that's treason, Wade. They'd hang me. Boone's trafficking children. I know that. You know that. Hell, half the territory knows that. But knowing and proving are different things, and I can't risk my family on the chance we might find proof. Wade wanted to argue, to push, to make Cal see that some things were worth the risk, but he looked at his friend's face and saw Sarah there. The same fear, the same impossible choice between doing right and protecting the people you loved. I understand, Wade said quietly. Do you? Yeah, I've got a son too. I know what it's like when the people you love become the reason you can't do what needs doing. Cal's shoulders sagged. I'm sorry. Don't be. You've helped more than most would. They stood there in the shade, 2 men who used to ride together, now on different sides of an invisible line. Be careful, Wade, Cal said finally. Boone's been asking questions, putting pressure on folks to give you up. Sooner or later, someone's going to talk. I know. Wade rode back to the ranch with more problems than solutions. The plan was falling apart, and he hadn't even started yet. Maybe Lena was right. Maybe this was just another version of running, except slower and with more steps. He was still half a mile from home when he saw the smoke. His heart stopped. Then he was kicking his horse into a gallop, rifle in hand, panic drowning out everything else. The girls? Noah. He'd left them alone and now… But as he got closer, the panic shifted to confusion. The smoke wasn't coming from the house. It was coming from the fire pit in the yard, controlled and small. And standing around it were Noah, Lena, and Mira, along with someone Wade hadn't expected to see. Cal Reed. Wade pulled up short. What the hell? Cal looked sheepish. I changed my mind. You were just… I left you in town 10 minutes ago. I know. I watched you ride off, then I stood there thinking about those 2 girls and what happens if Boone gets them back. And I thought about my own kids and what kind of world I'm leaving them. Cal shrugged. So I followed you. Figured I'd help after all. You said it was too dangerous. It is, but so's doing nothing. Wade dismounted, still trying to process this. What about your family? My wife says I've been walking around like a ghost the past week. Says whatever's eating at me, I need to deal with it before it eats me alive. Cal managed a weak smile. Apparently I'm not as good at hiding things as I thought. Lena was watching the exchange with her arms crossed. He showed up about 5 minutes after you left. Started talking about helping. I told him he was crazy. And yet here he is, Noah added. Here I am, Cal agreed. So, we doing this or what? Wade looked at his friend, at the kids, at the fire they'd built. You're sure? Not even a little bit, but I'm doing it anyway. It wasn't much, but it was more than Wade had an hour ago. They spent the afternoon planning. Cal drew a rough map of the courthouse and Boone's office, marking entry points and guard positions. The safe, he confirmed, was behind a painting of some territorial founder nobody remembered. Standard lock, but good quality. I don't suppose you know the combination, Wade said. If I did, we wouldn't be having this conversation. Lena studied the map. What about breaking it open? Too loud. We'd have half the town on us before we got it cracked. Then we find someone who knows how to open it quiet. Cal shook his head. The only person in Red Hollow who can crack a safe is Martin Deeks, and he's halfway through a 5-year sentence for robbing the bank. Where's he being held? County jail. Right next to Boone's office, actually. Wade and Lena exchanged glances. No, Cal said immediately. Absolutely not. We are not breaking a convicted criminal out of jail. We wouldn't be breaking him out, Wade said slowly. Just borrowing him for a few hours. That's insane. It's efficient. Deeks cracks the safe, we get the ledgers, everyone goes home. Except Deeks, who goes back to jail. We could offer him something, time off his sentence maybe. We don't have the authority to offer that. Wade was already working through the logistics. It was crazy, probably impossible, but it was also the closest thing to a real plan they'd had. What if we got Marshal Calhoun involved, Wade said. If he knew what was in those ledgers, he might be willing to make a deal with Deeks. Cal looked pained. You want to contact the territorial marshal before we have any evidence? I want to give Deeks a reason to help us that doesn't involve money we don't have. Lena leaned forward. What if you promised to get him out of Boone's jurisdiction? Move him to a different jail, different judge? That was actually smart. Deeks had been sentenced by Boone, which meant he was probably being leaned on to take jobs for the judge's benefit. A transfer would be worth something. It might work, Cal said reluctantly, but that's a lot of ifs. If we can get to Deeks, if he agrees, if we can get into the office without being caught, if the safe actually contains what we think it does. When did you become such a pessimist? Wade asked. Around the time we started planning to commit multiple felonies in one night. They worked out details until the sun started setting. The plan was still full of holes, but it was taking shape. Cal would create a distraction at the far end of town, something to pull the night guards away. Wade and Lena would go in through the back window of the courthouse. Deeks' cell was on the ground floor, easy access if they could get past the lock. I still don't like you going, Wade told Lena. And I don't care what you like. I'm smaller than you, quieter than you, and I've broken into more places in the past 4 months than you have in your whole life. You need me. She wasn't wrong. Wade had been a deputy, not a thief. Lena had survival skills he couldn't match. Fine, he said, but you follow my lead. If something goes wrong, you run. If something goes wrong, we both run. Lena, I'm not leaving you to get caught alone. We do this together or not at all. Noah had been listening from the porch. What about me and Mira? You stay here, Wade said. Keep the doors locked. If we're not back by sunrise, you take the wagon and head to the Harrison Ranch. They're good people. They'll help. And just abandon you? And save yourselves. That's an order. Noah looked mutinous, but he nodded. They ate dinner in near silence, everyone processing what was about to happen. Mira picked at her food, watching Lena with worried eyes. She'd been talking more, but tonight she'd gone quiet again. After the plates were cleared, Lena took her sister upstairs. Wade could hear their voices. Lena's steady and low, Mira's high and uncertain. He couldn't make out words, but the tone was clear. Comfort. Promises. The kind of lies you tell because the truth is too heavy. Cal pulled Wade aside. You know this might not work. I know. And you're still doing it. I am. Why? I mean, really why? These girls aren't your responsibility. You could put them on a train west, give them money for a fresh start. Nobody would blame you. Wade thought about that. About the easy way out that wasn't really easy at all. You know how many times I watched bad things happen and told myself it wasn't my problem? Wade said. How many times I saw injustice and decided staying quiet was safer than speaking up. I became a deputy because I thought I could make a difference. Then I quit because making a difference turned out to be harder than I thought. You quit because Sarah was dying. I quit because I was scared. Scared of losing her. Scared of raising Noah alone. Scared of everything. And maybe that was the right choice then, but I'm tired of being scared. I'm tired of watching men like Boone win because good people are too afraid to fight back. Cal was quiet for a moment. That's a hell of a reason to risk your life. It's the only reason I've got. They left an hour before midnight. The moon was up but mostly hidden behind clouds, which was good for cover and bad for seeing. Wade rode with Lena behind him, both dressed in dark clothes. Cal had gone ahead to set up his distraction. The ride to Red Hollow felt longer than it was. Lena held on to Wade's waist, silent, intense. They'd left Noah and Mira barricaded in the house with instructions Wade hoped they'd never need to follow. They hitched the horse a quarter mile outside town and went in on foot. Red Hollow at night was a different creature, quieter, darker, full of shadows that moved wrong. Most businesses were closed. The saloon was still lit, voices and piano music spilling into the street. They circled around to the back of the courthouse. Cal's distraction was set to start in 10 minutes. A fire in an abandoned building on the far side of town. Nothing dangerous, just enough smoke to draw attention. Wade checked the window he'd marked earlier. Locked, but the lock was old. He worked at it with his knife while Lena kept watch. The metal was stubborn, rusty. His hands were sweating. "Hurry," Lena whispered. "Working on it." Finally, something clicked. The window swung open with a creak that sounded loud as thunder. Wade froze, listening. Nothing. No shouts, no footsteps. He boosted Lena through first, then pulled himself up and over. They landed in a storage room that smelled like dust and old paper. Wade pulled out a small lantern, keeping the light low. The jail cells were down the hall. They moved quiet, staying close to the walls. Somewhere in the building, a clock ticked. Wade's heart was hammering so hard he thought Lena must be able to hear it. They reached the cells, 3 of them, all small, all empty, except for the middle one. Martin Deeks sat on a thin cot, reading a book by candlelight. He looked up when they approached, more curious than surprised. "Well," Deeks said quietly, "this is unexpected." He was younger than Wade remembered, maybe 30, with sharp eyes and the kind of calm that came from accepting his situation. Deeks had robbed the bank because his family was starving, which didn't make it legal, but made it understandable. "We need your help," Wade said. "I gathered that, seeing as you broke into a jail to talk to me." Deeks set down his book. "What kind of help?" "The kind that involves opening a safe." Deeks smiled. "And here I thought you were the law-abiding type, Mercer." "Plans change. You interested or not?" "Depends on what you're offering," Wade explained quickly. The ledgers, Boone's operation, the possibility of getting Deeks transferred out of Boone's jurisdiction if the marshal got involved. Deeks listened without interrupting, his expression unreadable. "That's a lot of maybes," Deeks said when Wade finished. "It's what we've got. And if I say no, then we try to crack it ourselves, and probably fail." Deeks considered that. Outside, somewhere in the distance, someone shouted. Cal's distraction, right on time. "All right," Deeks said. "I'll do it, but not because of your deal. Because Boone sentenced me to 5 years for stealing $300 while he's been selling children for profit. That doesn't sit right." Wade pulled out his lockpick again, working on the cell door. It opened easier than the window. Deeks stepped out, stretching. "Been a while since I had a good walk," he said. They moved through the courthouse like ghosts. Outside, the commotion was growing, voices, running footsteps. Cal had done his job. Most of the guards were heading toward the fire. Boone's office was on the second floor. The door was locked, but Deeks had it open in seconds. Wade marveled at how easy he made it look. Inside, the office was neat to the point of obsession. Everything in its place, organized and controlled. Just like Boone himself. Deeks went straight to the painting Cal had mentioned, some territorial founder with a stern expression and outdated clothes. He pulled it aside, revealing the safe. "Standard Harrison model," Deeks murmured, examining it. "Good lock, but nothing special. Give me 5 minutes." Wade and Lena stood watch while Deeks worked. The safecracker pressed his ear to the metal, turning the dial with careful precision. Wade tried not to think about all the things that could go wrong. The guards coming back, Boone showing up, the safe being empty. 3 minutes passed. 4. Outside, the voices were getting quieter. The distraction was burning out. "Come on," Wade whispered. "Can't rush it," Deeks said calmly. Footsteps in the hallway. Heavy, deliberate. Wade's hand went to his gun. The footsteps passed. Kept going. Faded. Wade exhaled. Click. Deeks pulled the safe open. Inside were stacks of papers, bound ledgers, documents that looked official and important. Wade grabbed them all, not bothering to sort through them now. Lena helped, stuffing papers into a bag they'd brought. "This is it," Lena breathed, pulling out a ledger. Her hands were shaking. "This is the one. Look, names, dates, amounts paid." Wade flipped through pages. 63 children, 8 years of trafficking, payments from families, kickbacks to county officials, bribes to lawmen. It was all there, documented in Boone's own careful handwriting. "We've got him," Wade said. That's when the door opened. Judge Silas Boone stood in the doorway, a pistol in his hand, pointed directly at Wade's chest.
Behind him were two men Wade recognized as Boone's personal security. "I was wondering when you'd try something this stupid," Boone said calmly. Wade's gun was still holstered. Deeks had frozen at the safe. Lena had gone very still, her hand moving slowly toward the knife at her waist. "Don't," Boone said, not looking at her but knowing anyway. "My men are faster than you are." They were caught. Completely, utterly caught. Every scenario Wade had planned for hadn't included this. Boone waiting for them like he'd known they were coming all along. "You set a fire as a distraction," Boone continued, almost conversationally. "Drew my guards away. Clever, but obvious. Did you really think I wouldn't anticipate someone might try something like this?" Wade said nothing. The ledgers were still in the bag at Lena's feet, so close and completely out of reach. Boone stepped fully into the room, his men flanking him. "The question now is what to do with you. Breaking and entering. Jailbreak. Attempted theft of legal documents," he smiled. "That's 10 years minimum, Mercer. More for your accomplices." "Those aren't legal documents," Wade said. "They're evidence of trafficking." "According to who? You?" Boone laughed. "I control the courts here. I control the law. Those ledgers say whatever I say they say." The territorial marshal might disagree. "The marshal is 200 miles away and answers to politicians I've been bribing for 8 years. He's not coming to save you." Lena's voice was quiet but steady. "You can't keep doing this." Boone looked at her, really looked at her for the first time. "Ah, the Harper girl. Lena, wasn't it? You've caused me quite a bit of trouble." "Good. Defiant. I remember now. That's why the Harpers had such difficulty with you." Boone's expression didn't change. "You understand you're going back there, tonight, along with your sister." "No. It's not a negotiation. The law is very clear about orphan placements. You belong to the family I assigned you to until you're 18. Running away doesn't change that." Wade stepped forward, putting himself between Boone and Lena. "You're not taking them." Boone raised the pistol slightly. "Move again and I'll shoot you. Not fatally. I'm not a murderer. But enough to make a point." They stood there in the stillness, 5 people in a room that felt too small. Wade's mind was racing, looking for options, finding none. The guns, the ledgers, everything was wrong. Then Deke spoke up. "You're not going to shoot anyone." Boone glanced at him. "And why is that?" "Because you're smart. You've been running this operation for 8 years without getting caught. You didn't manage that by leaving bodies behind. You did it by controlling the narrative, making everything look legal." Deeks gestured at the room. "Shooting a former deputy in your own office? That's messy. That raises questions even bribes can't answer." Boone's expression flickered, just for a second. "You're going to let us walk out of here," Deeks continued. "Because if you don't, if you shoot us or arrest us, those ledgers disappear. And maybe they end up in Austin anyway. Maybe copies get sent to newspapers in Dallas and San Antonio. Maybe the whole territory finds out what you've been doing. You're bluffing. Maybe. But are you willing to bet 8 years of work on it?" The room went very quiet. Wade watched Boone's face, saw the calculation happening behind those cold eyes. The judge wasn't scared. Men like him didn't scare easy, but he was thinking. Finally, Boone lowered the gun slightly. Not all the way, but enough. "You can leave," he said, "but the ledgers stay." "No deal," Wade said. "Then we're at an impasse." Lena's hand was definitely on her knife now. Wade could feel the tension coming off her in waves. If this went wrong, she'd fight, and she'd die. He couldn't let that happen. "Let me make you an offer," Wade said. "We take the ledgers and walk out. You don't try to stop us. In exchange, we give you a 3-day head start before we go to the marshal." Boone actually smiled. "Why would I need a head start?" "Because in 3 days you could disappear. Take what money you've got, head to Mexico or California, start over. Or you could stay and fight, and probably lose when the federal government gets involved. You assume they'd believe you over me. With evidence?" "Yeah, I do." Boone was quiet for a long moment. His men shifted, waiting for orders. Wade's hand was inches from his gun, but drawing would be suicide. Then Boone did something unexpected. He holstered his pistol. "Take the ledgers," he said. "Walk out of here. Enjoy your moral victory." Wade didn't move. "Just like that?" "Just like that. Because you're right about one thing, Mercer.
I am smart, smart enough to know when to cut losses. Boone's smile widened. But understand something. This territory belongs to men like me. It always has. You can take those ledgers to Austin, present your evidence, make your case. Maybe you even win. Maybe I end up in prison. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. But there are 100 more like me, in every territory, every county, every town, and they don't stop because one judge falls. They just get more careful. Boone's eyes were flat, emotionless. You're not fighting me, Mercer. You're fighting the way things are, and the way things are doesn't lose. Wade picked up the bag of ledgers. Lena grabbed Deke's arm, pulling him toward the door. Boone's men parted, letting them through. They made it to the stairs, down the hall, out the back window, into the night. And Boone didn't follow. They ran anyway, not stopping until they reached the horse. Wade boosted Lena up first, then Deke's, then swung up himself. The horse protested the extra weight, but moved when Wade kicked it. They rode hard, not talking, not looking back. Cal was supposed to meet them at the crossroads outside town. He was waiting, his own horse ready. It worked? Cal asked. Wade held up the bag. It worked. Then why do you look like that? Because Boone let us go. Cal's expression changed. He what? Let us walk out with the ledgers. Didn't fight, didn't chase, just let us leave. That doesn't make sense. I know. They rode back to the ranch in confused silence. The eastern sky was starting to lighten by the time they arrived. Noah met them at the door, rifle in hand, Mira hiding behind him. You're back, Noah said, relief flooding his face. We're back. Lena jumped down and went straight to Mira, pulling her sister into a tight hug. The little girl buried her face in Lena's shoulder. Inside, Wade spread the ledgers out on the kitchen table. Page after page of crimes, documented and dated. Names of children, payments received, families who'd bought them. It was everything they needed. So why did it feel wrong? He's running, Cal said, reading over Wade's shoulder. Has to be. Boone knows we've got this. He's probably halfway to Mexico by now. Maybe, Wade said. You don't sound convinced. He didn't seem worried, didn't seem scared. He seemed, Wade struggled for the word, resigned. Like this was inconvenient, but not fatal. Deeks was examining one of the ledgers. These go back 8 years. There's got to be copies somewhere. Insurance in case something like this happened. Doesn't matter, Cal said. We've got originals. That's enough for the marshal. Was it? Wade wanted to believe that, wanted to think they'd won, but Boone's words kept echoing in his head. You're not fighting me. You're fighting the way things are. Dawn was breaking properly now, sunlight streaming through the windows. The ledgers sat on the table like evidence or like a promise, depending on how you looked at them. Lena came back downstairs, Mira's hand in hers. The little girl looked at the ledgers, then at Wade. Safe now? Mira whispered. Wade wanted to say yes, wanted to promise her that the ledgers meant safety, that Boone was finished, that she'd never have to run again, but he'd made too many promises he couldn't keep. Safer, he said instead. We're safer than we were. It wasn't much, but right now it was all he had to give. Safer turned out to last exactly 3 days. Wade spent those days writing letters to Marshal Calhoun in Austin, carefully documenting every entry in Boone's ledgers. Cal returned Deeks to his cell before anyone noticed he was missing, with promises Wade still wasn't sure he could keep. The ranch fell into a tense routine, chores during the day, watching the road at night, everyone pretending things were normal while waiting for the world to catch fire. Lena stopped sleeping entirely. Wade would find her at the window before dawn, knife in hand, eyes fixed on the horizon like she could will the danger away through sheer force of attention. Mira had gone quiet again, speaking only to her sister in whispers Wade couldn't hear. Noah tried to keep things light, but even he was starting to crack. The kid was 10. He shouldn't have to sleep with a rifle by his bed. On the third morning, the riders came. Wade was in the barn when Noah shouted from the house. By the time he made it outside, 6 men on horseback were approaching from the east, riding slow and deliberate. Not rushing, because they didn't need to. They had numbers and time on their side. Get inside, Wade told Noah. Pa, now. Noah ran. Wade stayed on the porch, rifle across his chest, watching the riders approach. He recognized 2 of them, Hired guns who worked for whoever paid best. The others were strangers, which somehow made it worse. They stopped at the edge of the property, just out of easy rifle range. Professional. One of them, a man with a scar running from his eye to his jaw, nudged his horse forward a few steps. "Wade Mercer?" the man called. "That's right. Name's Tillman. I'm here on behalf of Judge Silas Boone. Judge Boone can come talk to me himself. He's a busy man. Sent us instead." Tillman's horse shifted, restless. "We're here for the two girls you've got inside, the Harper placement. Judge has legal papers saying they belong with their assigned family." "They're not going back." "That's not your decision to make." "I'm making it anyway." Tillman sighed like this was all very tedious. "Look, we can do this easy or hard. Easy is you hand over the girls, we ride off, nobody gets hurt. Hard is we come take them, and people definitely get hurt. Your choice." Wade's finger rested near the trigger. 6 against 1 weren't good odds, but he'd faced worse. Or at least he told himself that. "You take one step on my property, I start shooting," Wade said. "You'll get maybe 2 of us before we get you. That worth it?" "We'll find out." The standoff stretched. Wade could feel sweat running down his back despite the morning chill. Inside the house, he could see movement at the window. Lena, watching, calculating. Then another horse appeared over the rise. Cal Reed, riding hard, his deputy's badge catching the light. He pulled up between Wade and Tillman's group, his own rifle out. "Morning, Tillman," Cal said, slightly out of breath. Tillman's expression soured. "This isn't law business, Reed." "Looks like law business to me. You're on Mercer's property making threats. We're serving legal papers? Then you should have come to me first. I'm the deputy for this territory. Any legal enforcement goes through me." Boone said, "I don't care what Boone said. You want those girls, you show me the papers. Proper ones, signed by a territorial judge, not just Boone's signature." Tillman's jaw worked. "The judge isn't going to like this. The judge can file a complaint. Until then, you're trespassing, and I'm telling you to leave." For a long moment, nobody moved. Then Tillman wheeled his horse around, the others following. They rode off without another word, but slow. Not running, just leaving because they chose to. Wade lowered his rifle when they were out of sight. Cal dismounted, his hand shaking slightly. "That was stupid," Wade said. "Yeah. You just painted a target on your back." "I know." Cal tied off his horse. "My wife said I came home looking guilty 3 days ago. Asked what I'd done. I told her everything about the girls, the ledgers, the break-in." He laughed, bitter. "Know what she said?" "What?" "She said it's about damn time I grew a spine. Then she helped me pack a bag and told me to do whatever needed doing." Wade felt something loosen in his chest. "She's a good woman. The best. Which is why I can't go home until this is finished. Tillman's going straight to Boone. They'll be back. More of them. And next time they won't talk first." "How long do we have?" "Day, maybe 2. Depends how patient Boone's feeling." They went inside. Lena was at the table, Mira in her lap. Noah stood by the door with the rifle Wade had told him to keep inside. "They're coming back," Lena said. Not a question. "Yeah," Wade admitted. "How many?" "More than 6. Boone's done playing." Lena's hand tightened on Mira's shoulder. "Then we run. Tonight, before they surround us." "Run where?" Cal asked. "Boone's got people watching every road out of here. You wouldn't make it 10 miles. "So what? We just wait here until they break down the door?" "We wait for the marshal," Wade said. "I sent the letters 4 days ago. If he left Austin immediately, he could be here in another 3 or 4 days. That's too long." "It's what we've got." Lena stood, setting Mira down gently. "No, I'm not sitting here waiting to get dragged back to the Harpers. I'd rather die." "Nobody's dying," Wade said firmly. "You can't promise that." "Watch me." They stared at each other across the kitchen, 2 stubborn people who'd both spent too long surviving to quit now. Finally, Cal cleared his throat. "There might be another option." Wade turned. "I'm listening." "Boone wants the girls because they're evidence against him, living proof of his operation. But what if we made it so taking them back hurt more than it helped?" "How?" "We get their story on record, official record. Have them testify to a neutral party about what happened. The placement, the abuse, the trafficking. Make copies. Send them to newspapers, other marshals, politicians Boone doesn't control. Cal was warming to the idea. Even if Boone gets the girls back, their testimony is out there, can't be erased, and it corroborates everything in those ledgers. Lena was shaking her head before he finished. Who's going to believe two orphan girls over a judge? People believed you before, Noah said quietly. Wade did. I did. Cal did. You're not the law. No, but the marshal is. And if he hears your story along with the evidence, sees how scared you are, how much you've been through. Cal looked at Wade. It's not perfect, but it's something. Wade considered it. The plan had holes, but every plan did. And Cal was right about one thing. Lena and Mira's testimony made the ledgers personal, harder to dismiss as clerical errors or misunderstandings. Where would we do this? Wade asked. Can't take them into Red Hollow. The Harrison Ranch. They're good people, neutral in all this. And Marcus Harrison is a notary. He can make it official. The Harrisons won't want to get involved. They will if we ask. Marcus hates Boone. Lost a case to him 5 years ago, still thinks it was rigged. It wasn't much of a plan, but it was better than sitting around waiting. All right, Wade said. We do it today, before Boone sends more men. Lena looked at Mira. The little girl's eyes were huge, terrified. She's 6. You really want to make her relive all of it? I want her to be safe, Wade said, and this might be how we do that. The ride to the Harrison Ranch took 2 hours. Wade drove the wagon with Lena and Mira hidden under a tarp in back. Cal rode ahead as a scout, checking for ambushes. Noah stayed behind at the ranch with strict orders to hide if anyone came looking. Saying goodbye to his son was harder than Wade expected. Noah stood on the porch, trying to look brave, failing. You'll be back tonight? Noah asked. Should be. And if you're not? Then you know what to do. Noah nodded, but his eyes were wet. Wade pulled him into a quick hug, then left before either of them could say something that made it worse. The Harrison Ranch was bigger than Wade's, more successful. Marcus Harrison met them in the yard, a tall man with gray hair and steady eyes. His wife Clara appeared in the doorway, wiping her hands on an apron. Wade, Marcus said carefully. Cal, wasn't expecting visitors. We need your help, Wade said. Figured, you don't drive out here with girls hiding in your wagon unless something's wrong. Wade helped Lena and Mira out. Clara's expression softened immediately when she saw them. Oh, you poor things, she said. Come inside. I'll get food started. Inside, the Harrison house smelled like bread and coffee and normalcy. It made Wade's chest ache. This was what a home should feel like. Safe, warm, permanent. Not the armed camp his ranch had become. Clara settled the girls at the kitchen table with milk and cookies. Lena didn't touch hers, but Mira ate slowly, watching the adults with wary eyes. Marcus listened while Wade explained. The trafficking operation, the ledgers, Boone's men coming to take the girls back. When Wade finished, Marcus was quiet for a long moment. You're asking me to go against a sitting judge, Marcus said finally. I'm asking you to do what's right. Those aren't always the same thing. I know, but in this case they are. Marcus looked at the girls, at Lena's exhausted defiance and Mira's silence. What do you need from me? Testimony, on record, everything they've been through, everything they've seen, official enough that it can't be ignored. And you think that'll stop Boone? I think it'll make him think twice. Right now, getting those girls back is about covering his tracks. But if their story's already public, taking them just makes him look guilty. Marcus pulled out paper and pen. All right, let's hear it. Lena started talking, slowly at first, haltingly, like the words were coming from somewhere deep and painful. She told them about her parents dying, about the orphan office and Boone's promises, about the Harpers and the barn and the endless work. Clara sat next to Mira, holding her hand while Lena talked. The little girl didn't speak, just listened to her sister lay bare every terrible thing they'd survived. Then Lena got to the part about the man before the Harpers, the one who'd locked them in a room. Her voice went flat, emotionless, like she was reading from a script. He said we cost him money, said we'd work it off. When I asked how long that would take, he said however long he wanted. Lena's hands were fists on the table. He kept the door locked from outside, brought food once a day.
Sometimes he'd come in at night and just stand there looking at us. Mira would hide under the bed. He thought it was funny. Marcus was writing everything down, his jaw tight. One night, he brought tools into the room, said he was going to teach us what happened to ungrateful children. He grabbed Mira first. Lena's voice cracked. I had the knife, the one I'd hidden from his search. I didn't think, just moved. Put it through his hand when he reached for her. How old were you? Marcus asked quietly. 11. Mira was 5. Clara made a sound that might have been a sob. Mira had started crying silently, tears running down her face without a sound. Lena kept going. The escape. The miles walked. The night sleeping in abandoned buildings. Stealing food because the alternative was starving. Arriving at the Harpers and thinking maybe this time would be different. Malcolm Harper said children needed discipline, Lena continued. Said work built character. First day there, he made us work the fields from sunup to sundown. Mira couldn't keep up. She was 6, too small for that kind of labor. When she collapsed, Ruth Harper said she was being lazy. Malcolm hit her. Hit her how? Marcus asked. With his hand, hard enough to knock her down. When I tried to stop him, he hit me too. Said that's how we'd learn respect. Lena wiped her eyes roughly. After that, we were careful. Did what they said. Stayed quiet. But it was never enough. There was always something wrong. Food eaten wrong. Work done wrong. Existing wrong. She talked about the other children at the Harper Ranch. Kids who'd been there longer, who'd stopped fighting. One girl, maybe 13, who worked herself sick and still got beaten for not finishing fast enough. Why didn't you tell anyone? What? Marcus asked. Who would we tell? Judge Boone placed us there. The sheriff in Red Hollow works for Boone. The county office gets paid by Boone. We were property to them. You don't ask property if it's happy. The testimony took 2 hours. When Lena finally stopped talking, her voice was hoarse and her eyes were red. Mira had curled up in Clara's lap, small and quiet. Marcus set down his pen. I need Mira to confirm this. Just a few questions. Lena looked protective. She doesn't talk much. I'll be gentle. Marcus knelt down to Mira's level. Mira, honey, I know this is hard, but I need to ask you some questions. You can answer however you want, nod, shake your head, or use words if you're comfortable, okay? Mira stared at him for a long moment, then nodded once. Did the things your sister said happen to you? Nod. Were you hurt by the people who were supposed to take care of you? Another nod, slower this time. Are you scared of going back there? Mira's whole body went rigid. She nodded frantically, then buried her face in Clara's shoulder. That's enough, Clara said firmly. She's answered your questions. Marcus stood, looking older than he had that morning. I'll notarize this. Make copies. Send them to every newspaper and marshal's office I can think of. Thank you, Wade said. Don't thank me yet. This doesn't guarantee anything. Boone's still got power, still got men. All we've done is make it harder for him to hide. Sometimes harder is enough. They left the Harrison Ranch as the sun was setting. The ride back was quiet. Lena held Mira close, both girls exhausted from reliving everything they'd tried to forget. Wade kept checking behind them, expecting riders, but the road stayed empty. Too empty. They were a mile from home when Wade saw the smoke. His heart stopped. Then he was driving the wagon hard, whipping the horses faster than was safe. Cal rode alongside, his face grim. The ranch came into view. The barn was on fire, flames reaching into the darkening sky. The house looked untouched, but there were horses tied outside. Too many horses. Noah, Wade breathed. He pulled up fast, nearly throwing everyone from the wagon. Lena grabbed Mira, jumping down. Wade was already running toward the house, rifle in hand. The door hung open. Inside, the furniture was overturned. Papers scattered everywhere. And standing in the middle of Wade's kitchen was Judge Silas Boone, calm as ever, with 4 armed men behind him. Noah sat in a chair, hands tied, a bruise forming on his cheek. When he saw Wade, his eyes went wide. Pop! One of Boone's men backhanded Noah across the face. The boy's head snapped to the side. Wade raised his rifle, but 3 guns pointed at Noah before he could fire. I wouldn't, Boone said mildly. You shoot. My men shoot your son. Simple mathematics.
Wade lowered the rifle slowly, hands shaking with rage. You touch him again. You'll what? You've already broken into my office, stolen my property, harbored fugitives. What else could you possibly do? Boone gestured at the devastation around them. We came looking for the girls. Your boy refused to say where they were. Got a bit insistent about it. Admirable loyalty, really. Let him go. I will. After you give me what I want. Lena appeared in the doorway behind Wade, Mira's hand in hers. Boone's eyes lit up when he saw them. There we are. The Harper girls. You've led us on quite a chase. We're not going back, Lena said. I'm afraid that's not your decision. I have legal custody papers. You're minors. You go where I say you go. Cal pushed past Wade, his deputy's badge visible. Those papers aren't legal if the placement was obtained through fraud. Fraud? Boone looked amused. Deputy Reed, I'm disappointed. I thought we had an understanding. We don't. No? What about your wife, your children? Be a shame if they had an accident because you chose the wrong side. Cal went pale but held his ground. Threaten my family again and I'll shoot you myself. Boone sighed. Everyone's so dramatic today. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to hand over the girls. I'm going to take them back to their assigned family. And we're all going to forget this unfortunate incident ever happened. No, Wade said. No? Those girls aren't property. They're not going anywhere with you. Boone's expression hardened. Then your son dies. Right here. Right now. And it'll be your fault for not being reasonable. The man standing behind Noah cocked his pistol, pressed it against the boy's head. Noah was trying to be brave, but his eyes were terrified. Wade's world narrowed to that single point, the gun against his son's temple. Wait, he said. I'm waiting. Wade looked at Lena, saw the calculation in her eyes. She was going to offer herself, trade her freedom for Noah's life. He could see her making that decision in real time. Don't, Wade said to her. I have to. You don't. Yes, I do. I won't let him die because of us. She stepped forward, pulling Mira with her. We'll go, just let the boy go first. Boone smiled. See? Everyone can be reasonable when properly motivated. That's when Mira spoke. Her voice was small but clear, cutting through the tension like a knife. You're a bad man. Everyone froze. Boone looked down at her, surprised. What did you say? Mira stepped forward, away from Lena, her small hands clenched into fists. You're a bad man. You hurt children. You hurt us. Child, you don't understand. I understand. Lena told me to be quiet, to hide, to never tell. But I'm tired of being quiet. Mira's voice was getting stronger, louder. You sold us, like animals. You put us with people who hurt us, and when we ran, you hunted us. That's enough, Boone said sharply. No, it's not enough. It's never enough. Tears were streaming down Mira's face now, but she kept talking. We're people. We matter. And you can't make us go back. You can't. The room was dead silent. This 6-year-old girl who barely spoke was facing down a corrupt judge and his armed men with nothing but her voice and her rage. Boone's composure cracked slightly. Someone shut her up, but nobody moved. Even his own men looked uncomfortable, faced with a crying child who'd found her voice after 2 years of silence. Then Wade heard it. Hoofbeats. Multiple horses, coming fast. Boone heard it too. His expression went wary. The horses pulled up outside. Boots on the porch. The door opened. A man in a territorial marshal's uniform stepped inside, 5 deputies behind him. He was older, weathered, with eyes that had seen everything and been impressed by none of it. Judge Boone, the man said. I'm Marshal Jonah Calhoun. I'm here to place you under arrest. Boone's face went blank. On what charge? Child trafficking, fraud, bribery, abuse of office. I've got about 20 more if those don't stick. Calhoun's eyes swept the room, taking in the tied-up boy, the armed men, the terrified girls. Looks like I arrived just in time. You have no authority here, Boone said. I have territorial authority. Which trumps yours? Calhoun nodded to his deputies. Disarm these men. Boone's hired guns looked at each other, calculating. 5 territorial deputies, all armed, all with legal backing. The math didn't work in their favor. Slowly, they lowered their weapons. Wade rushed to Noah, cutting the ropes, checking his face. "You okay?" "Yeah, scared, but okay." Lena had pulled Mira back, holding her sister tight. The little girl was still crying, but quietly now, her burst of courage spent. Calhoun approached Boone. "I received some interesting documentation 4 days ago. Ledgers detailing an 8-year child trafficking operation. Testimony from victims. Financial records showing payments to county officials and lawmen." He pulled out handcuffs. "Normally, I'd need more verification, but walking in here and seeing you threatening children at gunpoint, that's all the verification I need." "Those ledgers are fabricated," Boone said. "Mercer stole them from my office."
"So you admit they're yours?" Boone went silent. Calhoun snapped the cuffs on. "Silas Boone, you're under arrest. You'll be transported to Austin to stand trial. Your associates will be investigated, and every child you placed will be accounted for and removed from their current situations pending review." "This is a mistake," Boone said quietly. "I have friends, powerful friends. Then they can visit you in prison." The deputies led Boone out. He went without resistance, but his eyes found Wade's as he passed. "This doesn't end," Boone said. "The system is bigger than one man. You haven't won. You've just delayed the inevitable." "Maybe," Wade said, "but today's delay is good enough." After Boone was gone, Calhoun turned to Wade. "You Wade Mercer?" "Yes, sir." "You broke about 15 laws getting me this evidence." "I did. Under normal circumstances, I'd arrest you too." Calhoun's expression softened slightly. "But given the circumstances, I'm inclined to overlook it. Consider it gratitude for doing my job better than I did." "What happens now?" Wade asked. "Now we dismantle Boone's network, find every child he placed, every family he worked with. It'll take months, maybe years, but we'll get them all." Calhoun looked at Lena and Mira. "These the Harper girls?" "Yes, sir. They'll need to testify, formally, in Austin." Lena's hand tightened on Mira's shoulder. "And then?" "And then they'll need a permanent placement. County will assign them somewhere safe." "What if they've already got somewhere safe?" Wade asked. Calhoun raised an eyebrow. "You offering?" "I am." "You understand what that means? Guardianship papers, legal review, home inspections. County will be watching you close after all this." "I understand." Calhoun studied Wade for a long moment. Then he nodded. "I'll put in a recommendation. Can't promise anything, but given what you've done for these girls, I imagine it'll be approved." He left shortly after, taking his deputies and his prisoners. The barn was still smoldering, but Cal and Wade managed to put out the worst of it. The damage was extensive, but not total. They'd rebuild. Inside the house, Clara Harrison had arrived with food and blankets. She'd brought her husband too, and together they helped clean up the mess Boone's men had made. Noah sat at the table with ice on his face, looking proud despite the bruising. "I didn't tell them where you went." "I know," Wade said. "You did good." "They burned the barn." "We'll fix it." "They could have killed us." "But they didn't." Noah looked at his father, this man who'd gone to war with a judge to protect 2 girls he barely knew. "Was it worth it?" Wade looked at Lena and Mira, huddled together on the couch. Mira's voice still echoed in his head, small but unbreakable. After 2 years of silence, she'd found her words at the exact moment they mattered most. "Yeah," Wade said. "It was worth it." That night, after everyone else had gone to bed, Wade stood outside under the oak tree Sarah had planted. The stars were out, bright and cold. His barn was half destroyed. His house was a mess. He'd made enemies of powerful people and put his son in danger. But 2 girls who'd been hunted and sold and treated like property were sleeping safely under his roof. And tomorrow, he'd start the process of making that permanent. Sarah would have approved. Wade looked up at the stars and allowed himself to believe just for a moment that maybe they'd actually won. That justice had prevailed and the bad guys had lost, and children were safer than they'd been yesterday. It was probably naive. Boone was right about one thing. The system was bigger than any one man. There would be other judges, other traffickers, other children who needed help. But tonight, these children were safe, and sometimes that had to be enough. The next morning came too early and too bright. Wade woke to find Lena already in the kitchen, cleaning. Not the casual tidying of someone making themselves useful, but the frantic cleaning of someone who couldn't sit still with her thoughts. You don't have to do that, Wade said. She didn't stop scrubbing the counter. Need to earn our keep. You're not servants. Then what are we?
It was a fair question. Wade poured coffee, tried to find an answer that wasn't a lie. You're kids who got dealt a bad hand. You're staying here until that gets sorted out. And if it doesn't get sorted out, if the county decides we belong somewhere else, then we fight that too. Lena finally stopped cleaning, her hands gripping the counter edge. You can't fight everything, Wade. Eventually you run out of things to fight with. Maybe, but I haven't yet. She turned to face him. Her eyes were red-rimmed, exhausted. Mira talked yesterday. Really talked. First time in 2 years she said more than a few words. I noticed. She cried herself to sleep after, said all those words hurt coming out, like she'd kept them buried so long they'd turned sharp. Lena's voice cracked. I don't know if that's progress or just a different kind of broken. Wade sat down at the table, gestured for her to do the same. She resisted for a moment, then joined him. When Sarah died, Wade said slowly, Noah didn't speak for 3 weeks. Not a word. I tried everything, talking to him, leaving him alone, asking what he needed. Nothing worked. Then one morning he came downstairs and said, I dreamed about Mama last night. She said she wasn't mad at me for not saving her. Just like that. All those words in one burst.
Lena was listening now. Really listening. I told him there was nothing he could have done to save her, Wade continued.
That fever takes who it takes, and being 10 years old doesn't make you responsible for stopping it. Know what he said?
What? He said he knew that in his head, but his heart hadn't figured it out yet. Said sometimes knowing something and feeling it were different countries. Wade met Lena's eyes. Mira talking yesterday doesn't mean she's fixed, but it means she's trying, and trying is how you get from broken to something else. Something else like what? I don't know. Different, maybe. Scarred but standing. Not the same as before, but not completely destroyed either.
Lena looked down at her hands. They were raw from scrubbing, the nails bitten to the quick.
I'm 12 years old, and I've got a knife scar on my wrist and nightmares about men who tried to own us. What kind of different is that?
The kind that survives. The kind that protects her sister even when she's terrified. The kind that's stronger than she should have to be. Wade leaned forward. You're 12. You shouldn't have those scars. But you do, and you're still here, and that counts for something. Before Lena could respond, footsteps sounded on the stairs. Mira appeared, one hand trailing along the wall, Noah behind her. The little girl looked small in the morning light, fragile in a way that made Wade's chest ache. Morning, Noah said cheerfully. Too cheerfully. The kid was trying to pretend yesterday hadn't happened. Mira wants to see the chickens. That okay? Course it is, Wade said. They went outside, Noah keeping up his steady stream of chatter. Through the window, Wade watched Mira crouch down to examine something in the dirt. Noah crouched beside her, explaining whatever it was with hand gestures. The little girl's mouth moved. Words. Actual words. Too quiet to hear, but there. He's good with her, Lena observed. He's a good kid. Must have got it from somewhere. Wade almost said he got it from his mother, but that felt like deflecting. He got it from watching people be good to him. Now he's passing it forward. They sat in silence for a while, drinking terrible coffee and watching the kids through the window. It felt almost normal, almost like a family having breakfast together instead of survivors catching their breath between disasters. The illusion shattered when a rider appeared on the horizon. Wade was reaching for his rifle before he recognized the horse. Cal Reed, alone, riding slow. Not a threat then, but not good news either. Cal's posture was too stiff, too formal. Wade met him in the yard. What's wrong? Cal dismounted, looking tired. Got word from Austin this morning. The county board wants to interview the girls, verify their testimony, assess their situation. When? 3 days. They're sending an official from the territorial office. Woman named Mrs. Hewitt. She'll determine if this is an appropriate placement or if the girls need to be moved elsewhere. Lena had appeared in the doorway, listening. Moved where? Another family, or an orphanage in Austin until something permanent can be arranged. Cal looked apologetic. I'm sorry. I know this isn't what you wanted to hear. We gave testimony, Lena said. We told them everything. What more do they need? They need to make sure you're safe, that you're being cared for properly. It's standard procedure. Standard procedure is what got us sold in the first place. Cal had no answer to that. Wade didn't either. The system that had failed these girls was now evaluating whether Wade was good enough to keep them. The irony was bitter. "What do they want to see?" Wade asked. "Clean house, adequate food and clothing, separate sleeping arrangements for the girls, evidence you can provide for them long term, financial stability, character references, that sort of thing." Wade looked around his property, the half-burned barn, the house that was clean but worn, the fields that produced enough to survive but not enough to thrive. He was a widowed rancher barely making ends meet, with a 10-year-old son and no experience raising girls. On paper, he was a terrible choice. "I'll make it work," Wade said. "Wade, I'll make it work." Cal nodded slowly. "I'll do what I can. Put in a good word, provide references. But the decision isn't mine." After Cal left, Wade called a house meeting. All four of them sat around the kitchen table. Him, Noah, Lena, and Mira. The girls looked terrified. Noah looked determined. "Here's the situation," Wade said. "County's sending someone to decide if you can stay here or if you need to go somewhere else. They want to make sure you're being taken care of properly." "We are being taken care of," Noah said immediately. "I know that, you know that, but we need to prove it to someone who doesn't know us." Lena's jaw was set. "What do we have to do?" "Be honest. Answer her questions. Show her you're safe here." Wade looked at Mira. "Think you can do that?" The little girl nodded, but her eyes said she wasn't sure. The next 3 days were a blur of preparation. Wade fixed what he could fix. Patched holes in the roof, replaced broken windows, painted over stains that had been there since Sarah died. Noah helped without complaining, even when it meant missing time with the new chicks. Lena threw herself into cleaning with the same frantic energy from that first morning. She scrubbed floors that were already clean, organized shelves that didn't need organizing. Wade recognized it for what it was, the need to control something when everything else felt out of control. Mira mostly watched, speaking more each day, but still careful with her words. She helped Noah with small tasks, following him around like she was afraid he'd disappear if she looked away too long. On the second day, Clara Harrison arrived with donated clothes, dresses for the girls that actually fit, shirts for Noah that didn't have holes. She also brought food, enough to stock Wade's pantry properly. "You don't have to do this," Wade said. "I want to. Those girls deserve a chance." Clara looked around the cleaned-up house. "You're doing good here, Wade. Don't let some county official tell you different." "What if she does?" "Then you fight it, same way you fought Boone." But fighting Boone had been clear-cut. Good versus evil, right versus wrong. This was murkier. What if the county decided Wade couldn't provide for the girls? What if they were right? The night before Mrs. Hewitt was due to arrive, Wade found Lena outside again, standing under Sarah's oak tree. She was staring at the stars like they might have answers. "Can't sleep?" Wade asked. "Don't want to. Every time I close my eyes, I see tomorrow going wrong." "Could go right." "Could. But in my experience, things that can go wrong usually do." Wade leaned against the tree. "You're 12. You shouldn't have that much experience with things going wrong." "Yeah, well, here we are." They stood in silence for a moment. A coyote called in the distance, lonely and sharp. "If they take us away," Lena said quietly, "it's not your fault. It'll feel like my fault. I know. But it won't be. You did more for us than anyone else did. You stood up to Boone. You risked your life. You gave us a place to sleep and food to eat, and you never once made us feel like we owed you something we couldn't pay." "Lena, let me finish. If tomorrow goes bad, if they decide we can't stay, I need you to know," her voice cracked. "I need you to know that these past couple weeks are the first time in 2 years I felt like a person instead of a problem, and that's because of you." Wade's throat was tight. "You were never a problem. Tell that to everyone else who looked at us." "I'm telling it to you. You're not a problem. You're a kid who got dealt a terrible hand and survived anyway. That takes strength most adults don't have." Lena wiped her eyes roughly. "Doesn't feel like strength. Feels like being tired all the time." "Those aren't different things." They went back inside together. Wade checked on the kids. Noah asleep in his room, Mira curled up in the bed she shared with Lena, breathing steady. For tonight, at least, everyone was safe. He hoped it was enough. Mrs. Hewitt arrived exactly on time the next morning, driving a county wagon with official seals. She was older than Wade expected, maybe 60, with steel gray hair and eyes that missed nothing. She wore practical clothes and carried a leather portfolio. "Mr. Mercer," she said, extending a hand. "Yes, ma'am." "I'm Adelaide Hewitt, Territorial Child Welfare Office. I'm here to assess the living situation of Lena and Mira Harper." "We're ready for you." Mrs. Hewitt walked through the house slowly, taking notes. She checked the girls' room, the kitchen, the pantry, examined the food stores, the cleanliness, the general state of repair. Her expression gave nothing away. After the house tour, she sat down with each person individually. Noah went first, answering questions about how the girls were treated, whether they seemed happy, if they had enough to eat. He was honest and earnest, and Wade was proud of him. Then Lena. Wade waited outside while they talked, hearing the murmur of voices but not the words. When Lena emerged 20 minutes later, her eyes were red but her jaw was set. "How'd it go?" Wade asked quietly. "She asked if I felt safe here, if you'd ever hurt us or made us do things we didn't want to do." Lena's voice was flat. "I told her the truth, that you're the first adult who didn't treat us like we were broken or disposable." "What'd she say to that?" "Nothing, just wrote it down." Mira went last. She was in there for 10 minutes, which felt like hours. When the door opened, Mrs. Hewitt looked thoughtful. Mira went straight to Lena, burying her face in her sister's side. Finally, Mrs. Hewitt called Wade into the kitchen. She sat across from him, her portfolio open, filled with notes. "Mr. Mercer, I'll be direct. This is an unusual situation. I know. You're a single father with a young son. You have no experience raising girls. Your financial situation is stable but not comfortable. Your property requires significant repairs. By most conventional standards, this would not be considered an ideal placement." Wade's heart sank. But, Mrs. Hewitt continued, "I've been doing this work for 23 years. I've seen hundreds of placements, good and bad, and I've learned that what matters most isn't the house or the money or the experience. It's whether the children feel safe and valued." She closed her portfolio. "Those girls in there, they've been through hell. They've been sold, abused, hunted. They've learned not to trust adults because adults have consistently failed them. Yet when I asked Lena if she wanted to stay here, do you know what she said?" Wade shook his head, not trusting his voice. She said, "Wade treats us like we matter, like we're real people who deserve better than what we got. Nobody else ever did that." Mrs. Hewitt's expression softened slightly. "And when I asked Mira if she felt safe here, she spoke for the first time in our conversation, said, 'Wade came back. He promised he would and he did. People don't usually keep promises to us.'" Wade's eyes were burning. He blinked hard. "I'm recommending approval of your guardianship petition," Mrs. Hewitt said. "Conditional on quarterly check-ins for the first year and mandatory completion of a county-sponsored parenting course. But those girls can stay with you." Relief hit Wade so hard he had to grip the table edge. "Thank you. Don't thank me. Thank yourself for being the kind of man who sees children in trouble and helps instead of looking away." She stood, gathering her things. "The formal papers will arrive in a few weeks. Until then, continue doing what you're doing. And Mr. Mercer?" "Yes?" "Fix that barn. County inspectors are less forgiving than I am." After she left, Wade stood in the kitchen for a long moment, letting it sink in. They could stay. The girls could stay. He found them in the living room, all three kids sitting together on the couch. They looked up when he entered, hope and fear mixed on their faces. "She said yes," Wade said simply. Noah whooped. Lena's face crumpled, tears spilling over. Mira looked at her sister, then at Wade, then back at her sister. "We can stay?" Mira whispered. "You can stay." The little girl burst into tears. Not sad crying, but the kind of crying that happens when you've been holding something in for so long that letting it out hurts and heals at the same time. Lena was crying too, holding Mira tight. "We can stay," she kept repeating. "We can stay." Noah was grinning so wide it looked painful. Wade felt his own eyes getting wet and didn't bother hiding it. They stayed like that for a while, four people who'd been separate parts becoming something closer to whole. The weeks that followed weren't easy. Nothing about healing ever is. Lena still checked exits and slept with her knife. Mira still had nightmares that left her crying in the dark. Noah struggled with sharing his father's attention after 3 years of having it to himself. And Wade learned that raising girls was different from raising a boy. The trauma didn't disappear just because the danger did, and that some days you got things wrong no matter how hard you tried. But they figured it out together. Lena learned to ask for things instead of just taking them. Learned that needing help wasn't weakness. Slowly, carefully, she started to believe that this place might actually last. Mira talked more each day. Not a lot, but enough. She followed Noah everywhere, and he didn't seem to mind. They became something like siblings, bickering about chicken names and who got to feed the horses, the way kids do when they feel safe enough to argue about small things. The guardianship papers arrived on a Tuesday. Wade signed them at the kitchen table with all 3 kids watching. Official now. Legal. Permanent. "Does this mean we're family?" Mira asked. Wade looked at her, this little girl who'd found her voice in the worst moment and used it to speak truth to power. "Yeah, I guess it does." "Good," she said, and went back to coloring. Marshal Calhoun sent updates from Austin. Boone's trial was moving forward. More than 40 children had been removed from abusive placements and were being relocated. Several county officials had been arrested. The whole trafficking network was collapsing. It wasn't complete justice. Some people would slip through the cracks. Some evidence would disappear. Some guilty parties would walk free. But it was something. It was more than nothing. Cal Reed got promoted to sheriff of Red Hollow, replacing the man who'd been on Boone's payroll. His first act was hiring 2 new deputies and establishing an oversight committee for orphan placements. Small changes, but important ones. Martin Deeks got his sentence reduced and was transferred to a facility in Austin, away from Boone's remaining influence. He wrote Wade a letter thanking him for the opportunity to do one good thing before his time was up. The barn got rebuilt, with help from the Harrisons and half a dozen other families who'd heard what Wade did. They showed up one Saturday morning with tools and lumber and worked until it was standing again. Better than before, actually. Stronger. Summer turned to fall. The brutal heat gave way to cooler nights. The ranch found its rhythm, morning chores, afternoon lessons, evening meals where everyone talked over each other trying to be heard. Wade taught Lena how to shoot because she'd asked and because knowing how to protect yourself was different than needing to. She was a natural, steady-handed, and focused. Noah taught Mira to read using the same book Sarah had used with him. The little girl soaked up words like she'd been starving for them, which maybe she had been. They fought sometimes, because families do. Lena pushed boundaries, testing whether Wade meant it when he said she could stay. Noah resented sharing his space. Mira had setbacks where she wouldn't speak for days. But they worked through it, apologized when they needed to, forgave each other, tried again. One evening in late October, Wade stood in the doorway watching his kids, because that's what they were now, his kids, argue about whose turn it was to set the table. It was a stupid argument, meaningless in the grand scheme of things. It was also beautiful, because it meant they felt safe enough to argue about nothing, safe enough to be annoying, safe enough to be children instead of survivors. Lena caught him watching and rolled her eyes. "You gonna help, or just stand there? Just standing here." "Useless," she muttered, but she was almost smiling. That night, after the kids were asleep, Wade sat outside under Sarah's oak tree. The stars were out, cold and distant and steady. He thought about the girl collapsing in the dust, protecting her sister from a cruel man's boot. Thought about the choice he'd made to step forward instead of walking past. Thought about everything that had happened since, the fear, the fighting, the moments when it almost went wrong. Sarah used to say the world stayed decent because enough people decided to be decent in it. Wade had always thought that was naive, too simple for how complicated things really were, but maybe she'd been right. Maybe decency wasn't about grand gestures or perfect solutions. Maybe it was just about seeing someone who needed help and deciding that mattered more than staying safe. He'd risked everything for 2 girls he didn't know. His ranch, his son, his life. People would say it was crazy, reckless, irresponsible, and maybe they'd be right. But those girls were sleeping safely upstairs. They had full stomachs and clean clothes and a future that didn't involve being sold or hunted or treated like property. They were learning to laugh again, to hope again, to trust that maybe the world wasn't entirely terrible. If that was crazy, then Wade Mercer was fine being crazy. He looked up at the stars and thought about Sarah.
hoping somehow she could see what he'd built from the wreckage of their life together. A house that was too loud and too crowded and too full of people who needed each other. A family, in other words. Not the one he'd planned, not the one he'd expected, but a family nonetheless.
The wind picked up, rustling through the oak tree's branches. Wade stood, brushed dirt from his pants, and went inside. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. Repairs that needed making, mouths that needed feeding, kids that needed raising. But tonight, everyone under his roof was safe. And in a world that often felt too cruel and too hard, that was a victory worth celebrating. Wade closed the door behind him, locked it, and went to bed. Outside, the stars kept watch over the Texas frontier, cold and indifferent and beautiful. And inside a small ranch house, 4 people who'd found each other in the worst possible way slept soundly, building something that looked a lot like hope. Not perfect, not easy, not the fairy tale ending where everything got fixed, but real, and human, and good enough. Sometimes good enough was the best you could do. And sometimes, in the quiet moments between disasters, good enough was everything.